Have you ever gone to bed thinking, tomorrow I'll change everything? And then you wake up and you're still the same person? Same thoughts, same habits, same quiet frustration sitting in your chest. It's not loud. It doesn't scream. It just whispers, not today. And somehow, that whisper wins. Now be honest, does this feel familiar? Because here's the part nobody tells you. You're not lazy. You're not broken. You've just been trying to change your life while your mind is still running the same program. And that program doesn't shut off when you sleep. It gets stronger. Every night, when your body rests, your brain is busy repeating, reinforcing, wiring deeper patterns. The same doubts, the same fears, the same identity. So you wake up, not refreshed, but reset into the same version of yourself. And that's where everything starts to shift. Because what if sleep, the one thing you do every single day, isn't just rest? What if it's your biggest opportunity? Wait till you hear this. Most people think change happens when you're awake, grinding, hustling, forcing discipline. But the truth? Real change happens when your guard is down, when you're not overthinking, when you're not resisting, when your subconscious is open. And that's exactly what sleep does. It opens the door. But here's the uncomfortable part. If you don't choose what enters that door, something else will. Your past, your insecurities, your old identity. They don't need permission. They've been there for years. So the question isn't, why am I stuck? The real question is, what have you been feeding your mind without even realizing it? Think about it for a second, because this is where it gets real. You don't become what you want, you become what you repeat. And repetition doesn't just happen during the day, it happens at night, on autopilot. So if your days are filled with stress, doubt, distraction, guess what your brain is rehearsing while you sleep? Exactly. You're not just living the same life, you're training yourself to stay there. And that realization, it hits differently. Because now, it's not about motivation anymore. It's about awareness. And once you see it, you can't unsee it. But here's where most people mess up. They hear this, and they think, okay, I'll just think positive before bed. Sounds simple, right? It's not. Because your brain doesn't care about what you say once. It cares about what you feel repeatedly. That's the code. Emotion plus repetition creates identity. So if you go to bed anxious, scrolling, comparing, overthinking, you're not just ending your day like that. You're programming your next one. And that's why you wake up tired, even after sleeping 8 hours. Not physically tired, mentally drained. Because your mind never actually rested. It just kept running the same loops. Now here's the part that changes everything. What if you could interrupt that loop? Not with effort, not with force, but with something simpler, something quieter, something your brain can't resist. Suggestion. While you sleep, your conscious mind steps aside, and your subconscious starts listening. No filters, no resistance, just absorption. That's why the words you hear, the thoughts you repeat, the emotions you attach, they go deeper, way deeper than anything you tell yourself during the day. So imagine this. Instead of replaying stress, your mind starts hearing clarity. Instead of reinforcing doubt, it starts building belief. Instead of reminding you who you were, it starts introducing you to who you could become. Sounds powerful, right? But also a little strange. Because nobody really taught you this. Most people were taught how to work hard. Few were taught how to think differently. And almost no one was taught how to reprogram their mind while doing nothing, just sleeping. Now here's a question most people avoid. If your life doesn't change in the next 6 months, will you be okay with that? Don't answer too fast, because deep down, you already know. And that quiet discomfort you feel, that's not pressure. That's awareness waking up. And awareness is where change begins. But it's also where resistance shows up. Because the moment you realize you can change, you also realize you haven't. And that's uncomfortable. So your mind does what it always does. It delays. Tomorrow. Next week. When I feel ready. But readiness is a trap. You don't feel ready. You decide. And that decision, it doesn't start in the morning. It starts tonight, right before you sleep, when everything is quiet. And it's just you and your thoughts. So let me ask you something. What if tonight you didn't let your old identity take over? What if, for once, you chose what your mind listens to? Not randomly, not passively, but intentionally. Because this next part, it's where the shift begins. And once it clicks, you won't look at sleep the same way again. And this is where everything starts to feel different. Not dramatic, not explosive. Just lighter. Because now you're not chasing motivation anymore. You're building identity. And identity is quiet. It doesn't scream. It doesn't need validation. It just shows up again and again. But here's the part nobody tells you. When you start changing like this, something uncomfortable happens. Your old life starts pulling you back. Old habits, old thoughts, old patterns. It's like your brain is saying, "Hey, we were comfortable here. Why are you leaving?" And that's when most people slip. Not because they're weak, but because they underestimate how strong their old identity is. So let me ask you something. When things get uncomfortable, do you go back or do you push forward? Be honest, because this moment right here, this is where the real transformation happens. Not when you feel motivated, but when you don't, and you still continue. And that's when it hits you. You're not the same person anymore. You don't need hype. You don't need perfect conditions. You just do what needs to be done. Even if it's small, even if it's boring, even if nobody sees it. And that's powerful. Because now you're not depending on emotion. You're depending on structure. And structure is what creates freedom. Sounds weird, right? But think about it. When your actions are automatic, when your habits are aligned, you don't waste energy deciding anymore. You don't wake up wondering what to do. You just move. And suddenly, life feels less overwhelming because you're not reacting anymore, you're directing. And here's where it gets real. You start noticing something strange. The same life that once felt heavy now feels manageable. The same goals that once felt impossible now feel inevitable. Not easy, but inevitable. Because you've changed how you approach them. You've stopped waiting and started becoming. Let me say that again. You've stopped waiting and started becoming. That shift, that's everything. And if this is making sense right now, don't overthink it. Just acknowledge it. Because most people will hear this, feel inspired for a moment, and then go right back to their old patterns. But you're still here, which means something in you is ready. Ready to stop drifting, ready to stop overthinking, ready to take control. And this is where the journey becomes yours, not the books, not the ideas, yours. So what does that actually look like? It looks like waking up and choosing clarity over chaos. It looks like doing one thing that matters, even when you don't feel like it. It looks like catching your thoughts before they spiral. It looks like building quiet discipline instead of loud motivation. Simple. Not easy, but simple. And over time, those small choices stack, day by day, week by week, until one day you look back and you don't recognize the person you used to be. Not because your life magically changed, but because you did. And here's the truth most people avoid. You don't need a new life. You need a new way of thinking. Because your brain, it's not your enemy. It's just untrained. And now, you know how to train it. Slowly, consistently, intentionally. So the question isn't, can you change your life? The question is, are you willing to change your patterns long enough to see it happen? Think about that. Because everything you want, clarity, peace, control, it's not far away. It's hidden inside the way you think. And the moment you take responsibility for that, everything starts shifting. Not overnight, but permanently. So if this hit something in you, if you felt that quiet realization, don't ignore it. Because those moments, they're rare, and they matter. You don't need to do everything today. Just start. One thought, one action, one shift. That's enough. Because the version of you you're trying to become, it's not built in one big moment. It's built in small, consistent decisions that nobody sees. Until one day, everyone does. And if this stayed with you, even a little, don't just scroll past it. Stay with it. Because this might be the moment things finally start changing. For real.